Good morning. Good morning. Welcome back. Glad to see you're here. I have my tea. I guess it's in an REI cup. I think I'll keep that closer. I'm kind of needing the tea this morning.
Spader what? Mineral Creek?
Yep. Let's see. We're going to work on this one this morning. This is the sketch, but let me get you this picture here. Hope everybody's doing well this morning. There's the picture, and the television. I can see right here in the screen that the colors are just not the same as they are in a little lighter here than they are. There was a shadow, for instance, over the water. I guess you can't see it right now, but there's a shadow over the water. Let's see if the one I did in the book, see if that shows up any differently. Whoops, that's not on. Let me get that going. Hang on just a second here. There you go. Oops. Yes, Michael Spader, Mineral Creek.
That's it.
That's it. Yep. See how there's a shadow over the water and there's a little light area back there where the sun is peeping through. You could put a light area in here when you do the painting. But we're going to go with it. I don't know if I'll ever figure out a way to change that. Yes.
The second one in?
Yep. Sherry's getting it set up on the television, so that's why you hear us jabbering in the background there.
Jabber.
Leave it in the comments. Did it sound like she was jabbering? Uh, okay, let's see. Let's go back to, let's do this. Did everybody, let's go ahead and look. Let's make sure we have everything. I've already drawn mine because I wanted the ink to dry because this is a kind of a wet painting. We do a big wash on it and I didn't want the ink to run. So yours may come out slightly different, remember. Everybody should have some water, a couple of brushes. I am using Princeton rounds. I'm going to use a number 12 and a number 10. I may go a little smaller, but we'll see. Be sure that you've taken some water and wet all your paints, right? And let's see. I like these little squirt bottles. If you ever get these, has a red cap. They put in just the right amount of water very easily for me to wet each paint. I'm using a different palette this time than I was last time, I think. This little one, I have a lot of travel palettes because I like painting outdoors. I like urban sketching. And that's really what this class leans toward. We do some other things, but it leans mostly toward being able to do a small painting fairly quickly. So be sure you have a little bit of water on your colors and they're getting soft. You have, I have my old t-shirt under here. This one's just, I think, a regular t-shirt, not a Carhartt. I usually have those Carhartts. And your water is available. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and put the uh, sketch up here for you, larger. I'll get that moved over here. And that way you can sketch it or take a picture of it, take a picture of the sketch. I was not happy with the results of this one when I painted it in the book. I really didn't care for the way it came out. Hmm. But so we're going to take a second attempt here. However, it does make a memory. This sketch came from Sherry and I, let's see, just 2.5, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. We were coming down through the Rockies, and one of the last places we camped was in Silverton, Colorado. Just outside Silverton, we were uh, near, this is Mineral Creek. You can see here that there's a horizon line. Let's see if I can show you. hmm There's when you do your drawing, there's a horizon line right in here. And it's about a little less, maybe a third the way up, about a third the way up, or slightly more than a third for that horizon line to go across right there. And that way, the river ends right here on the horizon line. You can make it end on my drawing. I think I kind of did it a little wrong here, really. You could make it end a little bit smaller like that, the river. A little bit smaller up here, the distance from here to here. It doesn't end, of course, it goes around a bend. But it also gives you an area so that horizon line, these trees are just a little bit below the horizon line, just quarter of an inch, eighth of an inch. And then the trees that are slightly larger here are a little closer to you. And then the bigger trees, the bottom of it is actually closer to you still. Oh, let me get you the sketch back. Did everybody get a picture of the sketch? And that way you can draw it up. I'll give you 5 minutes to, this one's not too hard to draw. Remember that uh, the trees, they're just really, they don't have to be exact. You don't have to copy mine exactly. It's just a placement. So you have a placement as we go along where things are going to fit. Let's see. Mm. Does that make it easier to focus on? You can use your phone and take a picture of it, and then you have it to be able to use in the future. I'll keep going to drink my brush water. All right. Well, I don't even have a joke today. Well, maybe someone can leave one in the comments whenever you see this. Let's go ahead and I'm going to get rid of that now and show you. We'll get started here. Everybody want another minute or two to finish the sketch? Here it goes. Hope you got it. Okay. I kind of cleaned my palette I don't normally have a clean palette, but I cleaned it this time just for the fun of it, really. And maybe it'll help make this painting come out. This is kind of a rough deal here, what we're going to do. I'll explain it to you. See this line right here? So above here is kind of sky. I've got ink on my fingers. Is sky. And then down in here, in reality, this is another mountain range behind this ridge, but I would put sky in it. And then this is pine trees, and and then the water, of course, is here. I may go a little wider with my water, like that. May cheat it over there. And then this is dark. This forest, this bit of the forest here is very dark, and it made a shadow over the water in my real reference. Let's see if I can. We'll go over it one time here in the picture. You can see what I'm talking about. And maybe if I do it this way. Oops. Sorry, folks. This is. Do. So you can see here's where that horizon line went through right in there. And then this part of the tree, obviously, these trees are very dark. A little bit of sky behind them. Uh, the mountain is coming down, and it was very foggy. So those mountains in the distance are pretty light. And there was some aspens in there. There were a lot of aspens in that reference. So we're going to try and make a dark forest here and leave a shadow going across the water. Okay. So the first thing we want to start with, the reason I say it's kind of tricky, this one is, I'm putting a little water in each of these wells. And I'm going to start by making a little blue over here. A very light. I'm using ultramarine blue, but I'm not making it a very rich mixture. What we're going to do is we're going to put sky in here all the way through. And while that's still wet, we're going to start changing it to green as we come down here, a light mixture of green. And then we're going to put in some yellow in here. And as we get right over in this area here, we're going to put some very light green and let it kind of fold in or blend into the background. So this is all a wet process. So it's kind of better if you're prepared for it. If you have some of your colors already made, it's easier. So I'm going to put a little green in this one. If you're using a real urban sketching, a very small kit, you may not have the mixing well space to do this. On this green, on all of these colors, actually, I'm going to put that green in there. And I'm going to put a little bit of yellow in this one. I'm using cad yellow, maybe a little of, I might put in a little lemon yellow in with it. And we're going to change these as we go. We'll add and subtract from them. But getting my brush cleaned off now. I want to kind of neutralize these colors because it's very, how can I say it? It's in the distance, but it's also a very foggy day. So, for instance, I'm going to put just a touch of blue in my green. I'm using sap green. This is ultramarine blue I'm mixing in there. And I'm going to use a little bit of burnt. Ooh, that's way too much. I may have to make a lot more. mix here because that's a lot of burnt umber. We'll mix that in. So the green is there, all the colors are neutralized, slightly grayed off. The burnt umber has a little bit of it leans to the red side. So you can see that's not, it's kind of a dirty green. And we'll do the same thing with the blue, bring it down just a little bit. Let's put in just a touch of that burnt umber in there and kind of neutralize that color a little bit. Yellow, I don't think I'll do anything to. I think I'll leave that. And now I'm going to get my brush fairly clean because I want to start with the blue. Everybody ready? Let's see here. Let's get some blue in here. I think I'm going to need first. I think I'm going to need a bit more green. That's not enough of a mixture, I think. So, excuse me while I put a little bit more blue and a little bit more of the burnt umber. You can use burnt sienna if you prefer. And one day we'll paint a picture with just the primaries that I use, which are cadmium red, ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow, and from those three, you can make a burnt sienna, a burnt umber, a yellow ochre, um, and a nice green, tacky green, kind of a sap green. So uh, you don't really have to have all these colors in your palette, but it does make it easier. I call them convenience colors. Okay, I'm going to try to get this blue going again. It's kind of a light blue. I'm just going to put some color in there and see how it's looking. I'm going to go ahead and go pretty much across there, but maybe not quite all the way because I want to. Now, while that's sitting there, kind of a gray blue, I'm going to grab a little bit of this green and just let it, it's a little greener and wetting this. It's going to fade. This is very light, remember, because these are background that we're putting in here. There's actually a forest back here. So, and we're going to start coming down here with some of that green, right? Fill in back here. You can fill most of this in. You might leave a little bit. Well, let's just go ahead and put it in here. Let's go ahead and go all the way across and see what we come up with. I'm going to go all the way and come right down. And while I'm over here, I'm going to, you can make these slightly darker, leave a little bit more material in a few places, leave a little bit of air in a few places. While I'm over here, I am going to add in, clean my brush and grab a little bit of this yellow. Put some yellow back in here because there was some aspen groves back there. There were some. A little bit, maybe another one up here. And then I'll go back to that green. And some green in here. And some green in here. This is really just the way I would urban sketch it to get it in a hurry. You're trying to do a sketch in 1 to 2 hours and have a memory, something that you can take home and, and down here, this side is mostly so dark. It's actually kind of beach, a lot of green stuff. There's foliage down here, but we make it so dark in this painting that you can just kind of start with the green down there. Okay, and I got a little more green than I wanted mixed in with my blue sky. So I'm cleaning off my brush, dabbing it on this t-shirt down there. I'm just going to move some of this back. Maybe even leave a little bit of a whitish up there for like, because when there are clouds over the mountains, some part of it is more cloud than the other, or when it's foggy or misty. Anybody out there uh, camp up in Silverton, Colorado? It's been one of my favorite places for, oh, 30 years. Okay, we'll let that start drying up. Down over here, it's going to be a gray color. So now that I have my sky, I think I'm going to go ahead and gray up this blue a little bit more. And put a little bit more blue in there. Touch more. Whoa, that's a lot. That burnt umber I really got it soft. So I'm going to put just a touch more uh, ultramarine blue. See how dark that is. That's a little blue. I went too far that way. Get a little of that material out of there. Put less burnt umber in there. And here again, you don't have to make this a perfect smooth. I normally have this, by the way, I didn't mention this today. I do this every video though. I put white tape over I leave about less than 1/4 of an inch on the sides here so that when I pull the tape off, it's got a kind of an automatic frame on it. And I'll just go ahead and throw some of this in here so it has some movement. And I can take some of this out. So this has different things in it. Okay, let's see if everybody can get that far. I'll give you just a minute to work on that. Go. Everybody get that? That far? Now, this one we have to be kind of careful with. And I'm going to do one that I don't know if you have. I have some teal over here in the corner. Some teal color. You can use a light green if you'd like. See how blue that is? It, especially if you wet it a little bit more. Um, you can use just ultramarine blue for this, for the water, or I like to mix in a little bit of teal here as we go along. Right now, if this is wet, be very careful right next to the edges there because it will go shooting in there. If this color is wetter than this color, it'll go that way. If this color is wetter, it'll go that way. So you want to be very careful. Put minimal amount of paint right up next to your wet paint, or give it another minute or two and let it dry. While I'm doing this, you can see that I'm putting ultramarine blue in here and I'm not making it too dark yet. But I'm also going to add just a hint here and there of this teal. That's a little too rich there. You can also do it with Viridian, or you can use a little bit of the sap green in there to make it have some variation. And I'll go back to using the ultramarine blue. You can, if you want. We have practiced doing uh, dry brushing. People can dry brush and leave little air holes in it. Or you can come back and show some white if you want, with some of their marker. I'll show you in the end here. I'll use, I'll put a little bit of white in there. And I got that pretty wet. It's curled up. My paper, I'm sure you can see it is buckling because it has a lot of water on it. You have to be very careful if you do what I'm doing because it's very easy to get mushrooms. When you put wetter on top of stuff that's drying up. I'm thinking about taking all these live ones down and redoing them in where they're not live, so they'll still be live. I used to use the Adobe series, the photo, and I used to edit videos. These obviously are not edited, so I'm still deciding whether to pull these off. The reason is that so many of them, especially the first ones we were doing while we were traveling, man, the Wi-Fi was so hard to get a consistent Wi-Fi that there's a lot of bleepers. I didn't know if the thing was working or not. There's a lot of confusion. It's drying. You can, if yours is taped down and it's drying, you can do this, make it dry a little faster. It's the equivalent of kind of the equivalent of putting a fan on it. We didn't use, no, we did use heat guns occasionally, but for the most part, when I was painting with the movie industry, we just put these big fans aiming at things after they were painted. to let them dry unless I was working on set. And then you can't do the fan because it makes noise and the sound people will be very annoyed to you or at you. Okay, maybe getting dry enough to start doing a little bit here and there. I'm going to start mixing some green, and I'm also going to move there so I have some cleaner paper. I've messed up a lot of my t-shirt here. I'm going to start getting a richer green going for the darker green in this part of the thing here. Again, I'm using sap green, and because we're on the shadow side here, I'm going to add a little ultramarine blue to it. And because, like I said, I like this thing to look a little neutralized, I'll put a little bit more of burnt sienna or burnt umber. So I have a fairly dark mixture here. And we don't have to delineate specific trees all the way through. So I'll just kind of show you and see if you can get an idea of how this works. Let's see. Let's just start right here. If I'm going to put this in here, I want to indicate that there's trees here, of course, and I will take some small pieces out and let them be out there. But I also want to leave some air holes. So I'm kind of working with just the tip of my brush. I have a very dark color on our material on the end of my brush. Pigment. Hue value, a very dark value, I guess would be the best word. And I'm kind of designing what I think would look like a pine tree, but there are trees behind here too, so you don't have to you don't have to follow my sketch exactly. You're just taking some of this dark material. Now don't try this if yours isn't starting to dry up because it'll just spread on you. It'll just go all over the place. So just give it a minute. Let yours dry out a little bit. And I'm going to leave some bigger holes here. Yours may be a little different from mine as well because I just randomly drew this. It's very similar to yours, but may not be exactly the same. Excuse me, my sinuses are giving me a little trouble this morning. This particular tree right here, I'm going to leave. As you can see, I put a little darker blue in there just to darken it up a little bit. I'm going to keep coming right down here, add a little dark spots here and there. I'm going to leave this one because I want that to show up with a little bit of brown on it. I might go through it here and there. Just making some loose ends. No, excuse me. I apologize for my sinus issue this morning, but nothing I can do about it. I take pills. I guess I could try and see a doctor about it, but ever since I hit about 50 years old, and as these classes are for seniors, 55 and older, a lot of people will understand. I never had any allergies, and then since my late 50s, I've had a lot of trouble with my sinuses. A little bit more water, a little darker here and there. Yeah. Even though those trees, those will be showing up in here. There's a lot of foliage in the foreground, and it's really deep foresty, shadowy. So I'm going to go ahead with what I'm doing here. Ultramarine blue, a little more sap green, and a little bit of burnt umber. I've even got a little more burnt umber this time, a little less sap green. And I'm just going to come down here in the foreground. This is shadowy. You can, if you have had a little practice, you can leave some air holes there where the light is shining through and hitting hitting. There's going to be some shadows under these trees. This is going to be dark. So you can leave some or not. You can make this all solid there if you would like. Bring some down here. Make a little more sap green, ultramarine blue, burnt umber. And I'm using these colors. They're the ones I work with, but you could probably do this very similar type mixture with whatever you have. If you have raw umber or, another brown, you can probably use it as a neutralizer. There are several sets of primaries that people use. I've been using this set for years and I enjoy it. So that's what I stick with for now. I am considering changing it because some of these paints are a little bit, well, not a little bit, they're toxic. And so I do think sometimes I should change it. Okay. As my things are popping up here in front of my screen. As we continue to go, these trees, especially, I'm going to make just a shade lighter. And there's some trees there that the branches don't go down or just, huh, that's odd. I wonder why it disconnected there. I'm sitting right next to the Starlink. My wife and I got home from the camping trip and we still just did. We're trying to set the Wi-Fi up back here at the house. I call it a camping trip, but as if you watch these videos, we were gone for 4.5 months. And we're just getting things like the Wi-Fi turned back on here at the house. So I'm still using Starlink, which is what we were using as we traveled. And I picked up, what's it called? you know, the Verizon's little thing. You might want to use a smaller brush if you don't have a lot of brush control for some of this. And I'm still going to continue to work a little bit lighter on these trees over here. I might even put just a dab of, you can use uh, pad yellow or pad yellow light or lemon yellow into your sap green. And the reason is these trees over here are getting some sunlight. And you know, I probably should have done a forest behind these before I started this process. I could have done a little bit of a similar thing that we did here where we put trees back here, you know, green back here. But I didn't, so we're going to go with this. I'm just putting some sideways here, and as this dries, I will go ahead and put a little bit of brown for the stem or the stem, the trunks of the trees. I'm going to go ahead and put another one over here just to fill this in a little bit. I'm going to make that one come down a little closer. Just change the composition just a hair. And what about one way out here, huh? Okay. How's everybody doing? We getting there? I go in too fast. I'll give you another minute or two to catch up on that. This has a little bit of a dark spot right there, and it's a little too dark. There we go. Still looks like a spot. So I'll bring some of that material over there. We'll let all this stuff dry up. I'm going to switch brushes back to this big one. I'm going to mix a color. It's an ultramarine blue, but it has dirty ultramarine blue, neutralized. Taking ultramarine blue, that's got some, oh, there was some of that burnt umber left in here in that area. Take a little bit more, maybe. Try it. Making a shadow color here. Kind of thinning it out a little bit while this dries. Let's just see how dark that's going to be. It's still pretty dark. I'm going to come right over my water here. And right over this area here. You can leave some areas where the light is hitting the water or not. I'm going to go all dark to back here. And we may end up putting this, just another layer of this in a few minutes. But right now I'm going to let that dry and see how I like it. Meanwhile, this one's touchy. So back in here, up in the distance, there are Where there's yellow, there's obviously,
She's the cutest thing ever.
there are, you want to make these very, very faint. Let's see here if I can get this light enough. Oops, that's pretty dark. I want some very light, just indications back here, and you don't have to do this one. You can, we're going to actually make that a little darker back there in a few minutes. I didn't get mine quite the way I'm not quite happy with it. So what I have here is a light, very light mixture of cadmium yellow or lemon yellow, excuse me, and sap green. And I'm going through the parts of this where I had made a tree forest. I'm just kind of indicating a forest. Now you can, there's some videos I'll try and do that in the future. Give you guys some other videos of other artists that are not urban sketchers. Because a lot of people like to go much more realistic than I do. I like to indicate things. And occasionally, let's see, one of these green ones will go up into the yellow there. I wouldn't do too many of these. I think I've already done too many. And they should be pretty light. I'm going to come in with a couple of darker ones back here, but they're still lighter than the trees that we did. My stomach is growling. I didn't eat any breakfast this morning. I had half a banana. Let's see, we'll let this all be drying, and while that's working, while that's drying, I'm going to pull out a little bit smaller brush here. Heck, I might go away. Well, let's just use this one. I'm sure you all have seen this one before. This is a number 6 Princeton, and it's a liner brush. It's a little large still for a liner. I think a number 4 would probably do you better. Now I'm going to put some straight, I've got burnt sienna here. I'm just going to put some highlight colors in here. Now I'm going to grab a little bit of burnt umber so that it's not all light. I had some roots drawn there. You can't hardly see them, but I'm just putting a little bit of trunks, a little indication that there are tree trunks back here. And I will go ahead and do the same thing like here. This, like I say, this brush is a little large for what I'm doing. You may want to get a smaller one if you're doing something similar. I'm just putting an occasional trunk line in there. Do, 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 do. This is a beautiful spot. Sherry and I camped here several times in the past. So there's a lot of camping around Silverton, Colorado. I'm gonna put a random one up here, like it was just from something else. And we can put a little one sticking out there. I'm gonna go ahead and switch this. I'm gonna put a little dark color on here. I'm gonna make this, let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and put some ultramarine blue here. I'll grab a little bit of this burnt umber and right along here, because, oops, that's still wet. Wow, it's a little much. See if I can pull that back a little bit. I have to give it a minute. There is the, well, it's still going to be wet. I have to wait a minute. We'll wait a minute for that one. I'm just going to pull that out, take a little dab, and let that, I'll go ahead. Well, this may all be wet here. Yeah, I'll give that a minute. While that's drying, let's go ahead and put some shadow side on these trees. How about? Let's see here. Go ahead and get a little green. Yeah, you're going to get the voting papers. Time to vote, everybody, if you haven't. Sherry's going to, there's a little, they print up a little paper that's got all the candidates on it for each thing. She's going to go pick one up so we can study it. Okay. I'm just going to put a little bit of indication on the left side that there's darker on the left side of some of these trees and a shadow right under them. Excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and start putting just a few dark spots in here. Might be a rock or two in the shadow. Maybe a rock is showing up in the, this was in actuality right here. This is covered with rocks. The bank here, it gets, when the river's really running during the spring runoff, this gets complete. The whole thing fills up. So, um, might put another rock or two over here in the shadow. Doo-doo-doo. Something down in here. And there was something in there. These are a little large for holes. Okay, let's try this one again. Going to just kind of, there's the bank here, which is, dark, the bank of the river. And I may darken up just a little bit of the tree on the left side so that the light is coming through the one area there. You can also put branches here and there. You can do them in that brown, or they could be dark because there's, a lot of things are dark in the shade, in the shadow. How's our time doing? Oh, we were doing okay. I go ahead and wave this one around again because I have some drying issues with this particular sketch. We're doing a lot that we need to dry. But actually, 20 feet, well, more like 40 feet from me, it was my office with a hair dryer. But I know you folks don't have a hair dryer, so I'm trying to do it the way I would do it were I out on location because there's no hair dryers out there either. Doo-doo-doo. See if this is going to mark on here. Yeah, it might. These, I don't know if you have one of these. Jelly roll. This is a jelly roll number 8, white. They work okay. Some things work a little better. I do apologize. When I first started doing this, I think I scared a lot of people away because it was too, we really didn't know. We learned a lot though. Doing those first broadcasts while we were traveling really taught me a lot about what's necessary to be able to travel and broadcast at the same time this way. It's easy if you just have a cell phone and you're just broadcasting your face and picking up the phone and showing a few things. But this setup requires the camera that's looking at my face. It requires the program on the computer to be able to put all the different pictures and things on there. The camera that's up here looking down at the work. It's not quite as easy as just using the cell phone or making a video and editing it. I'm waiting a few minutes because two things. I want to darken this just a little bit more, and I'm going to make a darker color, a gray. This gray I think is too dark for it. Yep, way too dark. But I can't put that on there. I can't do another wash on there until all of these little things that we've done are dry. I'm afraid I probably should have just stopped and done that first. I'm also going to do a darker wash down here, a little bit on the shadow going across everything here. So right now I'm blowing on it. I'll fan it a few times. I don't know. Can you fan yours? That's probably making everybody crazy with it flipping on and off the screen there. Got to be pretty dry to make this work, to be able to do it darker. I'm going to go ahead and try the sky. Put in just another light layer of sky here and see if it lifts any of this. you want to do is go over it only once. That's another thing is don't go back and forth because you'll start lifting up this paint. I'll give it another 2 minutes. Let it dry a little more. Boom, 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 boom. What on earth do we talk about until then? Oh my gosh. I think in this series of, I'm going to start adding uh, educational stuff. Uh, uh, watercolor educational stuff. Let's see here. I'll show you this one picture. While we let that dry. This is a guy that I really appreciate his work. This book is, see, Thomas Schiller. I really love the way he does stuff. But here's a similar picture. Now, it's obviously not the same composition, but look at his trees here. There's no defined trees, just a few limbs, and this is a dark shadow coming in, right? And of course, but it's similar in the fact that it's a very foggy day. There's deep shadows coming across the road. Of course, we have a river as opposed to a road, and where our composition's going the other way. But this is some beautiful technique here. Let's see if I can get it more in there. You know, where he's got them. He did probably at least two, three. You see, there's the gray here, and then this is slightly darker here to indicate that there's trees off in the distance in the fog. And then this is a little bit darker here with more trees in the fog, but closer to you. And then there's these trees that are in the foreground here, or near foreground, right? Very nice technique. And then he just threw in some random branches. Oops, you can't see those up there. Branches thrown in. Very nice. So anyway, we'll work with some Thomas Schuler stuff in the future, or Thomas Schuler like stuff, not necessarily his stuff. In the future, I want to add some of that. So I'm just not quite happy with this. I think it still looks a little too lit up. And I'm going to start over here. I'm not going to go over things twice. So I'm just bringing it over into there and bringing this very light grayish mixture that I have. I'm just coming down and bringing it over into there, because I don't want it to lift the paint that's already there. So we're just doing it once and walk away. Let that dry up. And while that's drying, let this dry just a little bit more down here. Just about. And I want to do the same thing down here. Remember, I have some ultramarine blue, some burnt umber, and maybe even a little sap green mixed in this. I'm not sure. It's a very neutralized blue. I put the same little darker thing here. Bring a little darker material in this. And kind of darken that up a little bit. You can darken some of these shadows just a little if they're too sparkly for you. You could even darken some of this back here a little bit every once in a while to kind of says that there's others back there. In retrospect, we could have done that. We should have made this correct before we went on with this. But time is a factor. Sadly, it's always on my mind when I'm doing this. when I'm out in the wild, especially when you're urban sketching, you have 2 hours to do, pick something and do it. But usually by the time you talk to everybody else that's there and find the subject, decide what you want to paint, what particularly draws your attention, you usually have about an hour and a half. If any of you are able, I would really encourage you to join a local urban sketchers club. They're around the world, and I think there's like 4,000. I don't know. There's a lot. I don't remember now. I used to be an administrator for them, but Sherry and I've been traveling so much the last couple of years that I just couldn't do the job justice. But I really love their message, what they do, and the camaraderie is there's a lot of people out there. Anyway, there's chapters. You can just go to urbansketchers.org, and there's an interactive map there where you can find the chapter nearest you. I don't want to play with this too much more. I'm going to let some of this stuff dry up. And I might try to do white, just Chinese white watercolor. So what's his name? What's his name? This guy from Spain. Anybody think of his name right now? I love his work too. He's so good. Might just try to put in a few. These rocks will fade. Chinese white is not a very opaque color. So when I do this, they tend to fade. But yes, yeah, you want to wait. You don't want them to spread out like that. You want them more to beat up a little bit like that if you're going to try it. I try to take one of those out of there. Some of the ones that spread out too much. And you could put a little highlights in there, back there, little highlights here and there. It is water. All right. There's that. You can do it that way, or you can use your gel pen, your jelly roll, and if it's dry, you can come back in and put some white highlights in there that way. I'm not going to sign it yet because it's still very wet. I am going to start pulling off this tape. Well, I'm way ahead of schedule here. You've still got 20 minutes to finish yours. And I don't want to keep everybody online just waiting around. And since I don't have a class watching this one currently, I'm going to finish early today, I think. The truth is, if I wanted to sit around, I may still even darken this background a little more, just slightly, and a little more neutralized, a little grayer. I might even darken the shadow here a little more. One more wash on each one. And I may do that to this one, but I will wait till this dries completely before I do anything else to it. It's just been, it's a little too wet. Here's what it would look like if you decided to frame one, right? And these, you may have one of these things. I think this is called Matte Plus in Albuquerque. There's a place called Matte Plus. Uh, I think it's Matte Plus, but I order probably 100 at a time. So line business, what I was saying before I went. Yeah, so there you go. A little memory of Mineral Creek in Colorado, outside of Silverton, Colorado. Of course, I don't know how many of you have been there before. So, mm, so let me just say thanks for coming. It's nice to see y'all. Hopefully, someone comments on these videos in the future. I really have a hard time understanding why um, OBS disconnects every once in a while when the Wi-Fi indoor part, the Starlink, was in arm's reach from this laptop from where I'm sitting, and it's aimed right at the laptop. So why it does those little skips, I really don't know yet. We'll keep working on it. Folks, I appreciate you coming. Stay safe, stay happy, keep sketching.